is the place where there's no opinion too common and no elites are allowed. So we finally figured out a way to make this live easy, and that is we had to go live together in the same room. So that's it. It's basically how we get it done. But in any case, so what's on the agenda today? So
well, a lot of stuff in the news, and a lot of elites right now are freaking out, and but I think the common men are sleeping pretty good tonight.
Yeah, I mean,
right? That where Trump, I think, is for the most part going forward in a way that we anticipated, we hoped, and that he's been saying he wants to do in a transparent manner. One thing, all right, let's talk about are the immigration deportations. They've been getting a lot of hype, a lot of people reacting to those, having an existential crisis. And for me, I would say the numbers are still well below what they were pre-Biden administration.
Oh, yeah.
They are targeting people that committed crimes, but also people that came here without checking in at customs, right? Which is illegal, right? You try to, fly into New York from another country and try to skip that customs line for any reason, even as a U.S. citizen, you're going to be arrested.
Right.
So that's the thing. We should be very suspicious of people coming in. I think that's, but the opposition has sort of shown themselves that not just the Selena Gomez, which is widely mocked, but there's been protests and stuff, and even the Catholic Church saying that any type of border enforcement is they don't right. So Trump is trying to draw a line, and the Biden administration, which was so far left, said we can't draw a line. There is no line. Any deportation is a tragedy. And now we're just trying to draw a common sense line, and the left is having an existential crisis.
Right, and it's not even that difficult. It's like I saw Vance make a speech on this one point in time. It's like, if you've got a cheeseburger and it's too big to fit in your mouth all at once, you just manage it a bite at a time, right? Like just take little nibbles here and there. I think it's obvious that we're going to go after the people who are committing the violent crimes first. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Hey, Shania, how you doing? Good to have you on the program. So we're talking about immigration at the moment. Yeah, just, common sense approach. I think you work with the criminals that are performing the most antisocial behavior and then just work your way down. Tired. I'm sorry to hear that. We're tired too. Tired of this Democrat government. No, I'm kidding.
But we're going to see slightly less illegal immigration. Is Trump going to be able to stop every single illegal person crossing the border? No. But slightly less illegal immigration, and it'll send the message, too, that we don't have a completely open border.
That's cold. Right. I don't look that bad, do I? I probably got the bags under my eyes.
Well, we are both of a non-elite, so we don't have a whole team of people making us look good.
That's right. Yeah,
it's just who we are.
We can't script this stuff in advance. We have to, wake up and go to work and then do this in the off time. Do illegal immigrants have a right to be here? Yes or no? Let's have that conversation. So I don't believe so. Just by virtue of the fact that they're illegal. I think it's very easy to declare yourself legally. Now, that isn't to say that you're automatically going to become a citizen right away, but as long as you're following the legal process, going through the port of entry, I think that everything's fine. I think that you're on the up and up. It's the people that don't declare themselves that worry me, because then I'm thinking, why? Why would you try to evade? Why would you try to evade being seen? Why would you try to evade declaring yourself at the port of entry? The only thing I can think of is because you're trying to do something illicit. That's the only thing I can think of.
Why be sus? I mean, every country that's had borders, when you come into it, you need the consent of that country if you're going to live there. Right? You should at least say, hey, I'm here. Here's my name. I've come here. So when we're talking about illegals, we're people that dodge the port of entry, right? Just like me as an American citizen, when I flew into New York's JFK airport from London, I've been through so many security checks. I couldn't have got on the plane without passport without them verifying my U.S. citizenship and all kinds of stuff. But if I were to skip that line at customs, I would have been arrested.
Yeah.
Right.
So he says, Real Frank says, as an American, I don't know how hard it is to go through port of entry. Honestly, if there's anyone that can explain the process, that's much appreciated. So basically, it's pretty simple, right? As long as you're driving or something like that, you know, you're going to hit one, right?
You can either walk, yeah.
Yeah, you can even walk
along. We have a wall. We have gates,
right,
manned by people, and you come and you say, "Hey, I'm here. I want to see a customs official." You give your name, why you're here, how long you plan to be here. I don't know. I'm here for tourism. I'm just here for the afternoon. I would like to move here. You can say all those things, but you give your name and your intention.
Right.
When you walk through the desert and you avoid that step,
yeah,
we should be very suspicious that you're here for nefarious purpose.
And you know what drives me nuts is the Democrat Party is making every single deportation like it's some grand tragedy, like it's like absolutely horrible. And meanwhile,
to go back to Mexico.
Right. Well, yeah.
Mexico's a real country. They have a beautiful culture.
They have some
delicious food,
gorgeous scenery. I mean, I've been to Mexico several times. Cancun. I've been to, nicer parts of Mexico. Fair enough. They're tourist areas, but like, I mean, are you asking? So, do they need visas? No, they don't need a visa to declare themselves. Yeah. Now, they do have to say like why they're here. So they have to say either I'm claiming asylum and that's what most of them do, right? Even if they're not actually technically claiming asylum. But they'll at least drop by and say, this is the reason for me dropping by. Like I'm running away from cartels, or I'm just trying to find a place to work or to stay or to live.
Well, they can even say, I'd like to register for the guest worker program.
Right.
So I can work on farms.
Yep.
I can work on construction sites. We have a guest worker program.
There are even day labor programs where they can cross the border just to work for the day and then return. Yeah. Of course, many of them don't return, but that's... It's
overstaying your visa is the one where they talk about as a civil offense. Mm-hmm. But if you come across and never go through customs, right? You use a smuggling agency to get you through, so you don't have to identify yourself at customs. That's the people right behind of those that commit crimes here in the States that have no right to be here, and we should be like, look, go back to your country. And when you cross our border, don't cross at a wall or someplace. Come to a gate and tell us your name. It's 2025.
Right. And so it is that easy, basically. And our pleasure for the information. So basically, one of the problems is, and I'm going to try to be as charitable to them as I can. One of the issues is a lot of times they don't speak the same language, right? So simple information like this is not quite as easy to get for them. So they don't, a lot of times when they come up here, they're following the crew, right? They're following the people at chow time. They don't really know exactly what they're doing. What they're doing is they talk to their family, they talk to their friends, and their friends say, oh yeah, you have to sneak in or something like that. And so they don't know what they're doing, right?
Well, customs when you come through customs, they'll ask if you have anything coming with you that you want to declare.
Right.
Right? So people are reluctant to go through customs. Maybe they have something they're carrying with them that they don't want to declare, such as weapons or drugs, or maybe they're pregnant and they plan on or have some serious medical thing they're going to go to.
Like 9 months pregnant, they want to drop a baby on
right? And so there are things that customs could say, you know what? Why don't you just wait or leave that stuff? That stuff can't come into the country. Could even be like, hey, produce right now. Our growers don't want this kind of produce in the country right now. We don't want cherries, or we don't want grapes because we're worried about
this fruit has some kind of fly or something that might spread pest some kind of pesticide.
Could be anything like that. Like it's just normal border enforcement, but you just tell someone you're there, and people are reluctant to do that. We have a guest worker program. There are lots of legal ways they can come here now.
Now, what drives me nuts is the Democrats are going online and it's like propaganda speech after propaganda speech saying, what will we do? The whole system will collapse the moment we start deporting people. There won't be enough farmers. There won't be enough construction workers. Basically, like it's borderline racist stuff. They're like, white people won't do these jobs. I'm like, yeah, they will. And I guarantee it. Like, I guarantee you there are tons and tons and tons of jobs right now that somebody wants to have that they can't have because somebody else has it. That's just how it is everywhere in the world. It's got nothing to do with that. Doesn't even have anything to do with anything about immigration. That's just people will always want to have jobs, right? That's just while there are jobs available, they will always want them. And so if somebody's taking those jobs, right, and then you vacate those jobs, now we've got a new opportunity for a bunch of Americans. And I'm tired of Democrats going online and acting like to lose a worker or two is going to like collapse the system. And I'm tired of them acting like it's okay to exploit illegal immigrants for cheap labor, because they're like, there's some jobs that only illegal immigrants will do. I'm like, yeah, because the people are getting paid them like $3 an hour. Yeah. That's why only illegal immigrants will do it. And that's terrible. That's not what we want. And I don't even think that's what the Democrats want. At least that's against their stated, desire. So
I think existentially, the elites have always considered themselves, and the media I count with the elites. Those who said they get to draw the line of what is morally acceptable for this country. And in the past, they drew the line of the deportations of people who cross the border illegally and are apprehended can be sent home. People that break the law here can be sent home, that was acceptable. Something changed, and they never declared that they changed, but they decided to give, because it was a Democrat president in office, and because Kamala was put in charge of the border, right? And they didn't want to call her out.
Right.
A woman of color being in charge of this issue, where she was like, I can't find a reason to deport anybody. And she didn't even have the guts to come out and say that. We're going to end all deportations because I don't believe in deportations. She just did the shadow effort. And it wasn't incompetence, it's their planned thing. And now all of a sudden the line to back up, they had to back up and affirm that everything Kamala or a Democrat president does must be correct. The media got in line and changed their line from where acceptable deportations are to now no deportation is unacceptable.
Yeah, and it's insane because this is the pattern from day one, right? So Obama is still the deporter in chief.
Yeah.
He will always be the deporter in chief. I don't know if you guys have seen Obama's deportation numbers, but even with Trump's aspirations, it will be difficult to hit. Like very, very hard for Trump to catch up with Obama. And if he does, more power to him. But like, why is it okay for Obama to do it, but it's not okay for Trump to do it? Same thing with the wall. Obama started the wall. He started building the wall. But when Obama builds the wall, it's just fine. When Trump does it, all of a sudden it's this massive xenophobic project.
And I think Trump is happy to have the media report on these deportations. Right? The numbers are still way down. But they do send the message to people in, especially far foreign countries like Venezuela, to maybe not make that trip to America, that maybe they're not going to be, welcomed 100% here if they're not willing to declare themselves and try to go about it the right way. Maybe they should do a little more research and go to a local consulate and try to figure out, how can I come to the U.S. and not break the law?
Right. It's not that hard. And guys, and I want to emphasize this because I can't say this enough. It's just illegal immigrants that I have a problem with, that we have a problem with. The common man doesn't care about somebody that comes in the right way, because the people that come in the right way minimize the imposition. They maximize their value to the nation. There's nothing wrong with somebody who comes in the right way.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong at all. It doesn't matter what color skin they are. I don't care whether they're male, female, other. I don't care whether they're black, white, Cuban, Asian, whatever. I don't care, as long as they come in the right way. If they come in the right way, I'm satisfied. So I never want to hear, this is one of the common rejoinders from the Democrats, is that, Republicans are all racist, or they're all xenophobic, or they're all ultra nationalist or something. Like, no. They just want people to come in the right way. And if they come in the right way, there's enough time for them to assimilate into the culture of America, which does need to be preserved, right? We're the best nation on earth, and everyone wants to come here for a reason. And that reason is we've got that culture that people want to reach. We've got the standards of living that people want to acquire. So if we've got that, we're obviously doing something right. So when other people come in, they need to join us in doing that right thing.
Yes. So being for border enforcement equating to racism is a claim that nobody buys anymore. Right? That's why Trump is president right now, is that Hispanics and people of all different ethnicities and races, right, found like, no, this is really common sense. This is this is not a far right wing issue. This is, you don't have a country if you don't enforce the border. Now, I grew up in Los Angeles, East Los Angeles.
Sorry to hear that.
Right. So, right, a town, schools that were majority Hispanic. And I went to church with people that were recent immigrants from not just Mexico, but the Salvadoran Civil War, refugees from places. And would minister and would know these people to be humble and hardworking people. But there's also a sense of how many people can we take at a time and really handle it and sustain us before we be overwhelmed. And we're asking, we just don't want to be overwhelmed. We can take several 100,000 immigrants a year.
Absolutely.
We can't take 5 or 6 million that will just overwhelm us. And it's the same thing. If you have a 1 or 2 uninvited house guests, you can make things pleasant and whip up something in the fridge.
Right.
You have 50 uninvited house guests, you're like,
yeah. Ask you guys yourselves this question. Have you ever gone over to your friend's house like without saying anything, without knocking on the door, like without announcing yourself when you're coming in? Here's what drives me nuts. These people leave their country because their country's apparently, so they claim on these forums, in such shambles that they couldn't possibly stay, right? Like their family's like literally being chased around by cartel members or something like that, or they're on the brink of starvation, and they come here to America to fight us about following the law when they get here and waving their flags that the flags of the countries that they left that they couldn't handle, right? And they're so proud about these countries that they left. Well, if they're so proud, why leave?
Now, there was a study, this was a European study, but 80% of refugees who left a country, right, because it was unsafe for them to be there, take their vacations back to that country.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So, I mean, I think when we had reasonable numbers of people coming here that we can sustain, we weren't looking at it with a jaundiced eye. But when a system starts to be exploited, like birth tourism,
yeah,
right, and just, hey, you come here, we're going to give you a little money and help you out and that starts being exploited, right? And people get the thing like, hey, you come here, we need to draw a line and say, no, this has to stop.
Yep.
Right? I'm sorry, the welcome sign was out, it's now off, right? Even hotels have a vacancy sign that they can turn off.
Yep. Every company's got a sign. They get they turn the open sign on, they turn the open sign off when the day's done. Switching gears a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you think about Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
The Hitler, the Nazi, oh my God, guys!
I don't think he's a Nazi.
Let me start off by saying this: the guy is autistic, right? We all know this. Some of you guys may not know that I have Asperger's, right? I'm on the spectrum a little bit, and I definitely have ADHD and a bunch of other things. Now, the problem was when I was growing up, I was a little bit too young to see all the letters, right? Like the ADD, the ADHDs. I didn't get diagnosed when I was young because I kind of grew up right before that age. But in my later years, it's come to be obvious that some of these problems were always my issue, right? I've always had problems reading social cues. I've always had problems sitting still in class. Just didn't know about it, right? Until later in life. But I can tell you that if you're autistic, you're going to do a bunch of weird, awkward things over the course of your life. And it's not like you're trying to do it. But that little salute that Elon Musk gave, it was obviously, he talked you through it. He said, this is from my heart to you guys. He didn't say like, Heil, he didn't say anything ridiculous like that. Like, I don't understand how people can even, where did it even come from?
Well, right. So again, the media, they want to push narratives. And so anybody on the right, they think must be motivated by evil ideology rather than common sense. And right, so with Elon and government, he's just trying to see what parts of government are inefficient.
Right.
And what parts of government are
all of them
are clandestine, not really exposed, and the bureaucracy has become so large. And digging into this, how are payments made? Who's sending out payments? And they found the person, 23-year civil servant in charge of that, had been told to never question or say no or delay anything. Just put it, whether it was to a terrorist organization, an obviously fraudulent or criminal organization, anything. Any payment went out, he let it go through.
Yep.
And to never flag that, send it for review, anything like it, just make the payment.
That's insane. Like that kind of like blind obedience is like what gets that's what leads to the kind of like Third Reich-esque behaviors, right? And these bureaucracies, that's like their sole goal. After they're started, it's like they operate under very little oversight. They're not elected, right? So it's not like I get a chance to vote for these people, like all these lettered agencies, EPA and CIA and D. You're like, I don't get to vote for all that, right? They're appointed or they're brought in by boards and stuff. And then after they're there, their sole goal is to like basically preserve their own life as a bureaucracy.
Keep their job.
Right, to keep their job and to expand.
Their
right?
budget, yeah.
Yeah, right. Because they never want to have a year where they don't use all the money allocated to them. Otherwise, they won't get the same allocation next year. So
never be efficient and save money, which a for-profit company would do. Right, you've got to burn it. That's why, like, end of the year, you start buying $600 hammers, or we have these things because they're just trying to burn up the rest of their budget so they don't have a reduction the next year.
Yep, and this is stuff. This is common sense, right? Anybody knows this, right? But you would think that it would likewise be common sense for someone to just go in time to time, like Elon Musk, and clean up, right? This would be. Am I crazy? Like that? Wouldn't you every now and then? I mean, all right. So I was a businessman for a long, long time, and one of Trump's probably his simultaneous greatest strength and weakness is that he runs government like a business, right? And when it comes to strengths, when it comes to the things that he's doing right now, one of the obvious things that I would think you'd want to do is run the assets like a business, run the labor like a business. You'd want to run everything as sleek and uniform as you can. You want to make sure that you're not paying for any extra positions that you don't need. You want to make sure that your audits come in right. You know that we've done, I don't know how many audits we've done in the military, but we've never passed one. The last one, we were over $1 trillion short. $1 trillion. Do you know how much money that is? That's like 14 carrier groups.
We can't really fathom it. Like it's really beyond our ability to. But it's to not know where this money is going, and these are just sort of basic tenets of what we should hold our government to. We should not, as citizens in a republic, should not stand for corruption and should in a bipartisan way say if there is corruption, I will vote to get that out of that, whether it is my party or not. Like I'm not for corruption anywhere. And lack of transparency for that amount of money is a big red flag of
yeah, it's outrageous. I mean, people talk about all of the other problems with the society, like homelessness or poverty or people that are starving and stuff like that, which is remarkably fewer than you might think. But even so, like $1 trillion lost in the military, like if you could just take that $1 trillion, you'd solve all of housing, right? Like there would be nobody homeless ever, right? You would solve anybody who is starving. Nobody would ever be out of food. You don't know how far that money goes. Like $1 trillion is outrageous. I've heard that only $20 billion is all you need to house everybody, every single homeless person in America.
If they want to live in Texas.
If they want to live right, and if they want to live in like a high rise or like a Section 8 housing or something like that, right? It's not going to be glorified. It's not going to be in a mansion, but and that's the other side of that thing, right? Like when we do these entitlement programs, they shouldn't be like. It's I remember when people were when I was growing up, people used to talk about the safety nets that were necessary to government, and it was always like, oh well, these people need more than just an apartment, right? They need like a computer, and then they need this, that, and the other. And they need a place all to themselves, and they need. I'm like, what? I didn't have all that stuff, and I worked my butt off for it. Why should they have it? No, if you're at the point where you're down and out, and don't get me wrong, because anybody can find themselves there. But if you're at that point where you're down and out, then we should be spending the bare minimum to keep you afloat. Not like so much that, you don't want to leave. Because that's what happened to my roommate when COVID was going on. He was like, why would I go back to work? I'm making more money just sitting around on my butt. I'm like, okay, well, good point.
Yeah, so right. So basically Trump has said, all right, every program where we're sending out money is on the 90-day hold. let's just reevaluate it. Let's audit. Is this something that we really want to do and is productive, moves our government forward, or is this just poof, money into the ether, right? And a lot of people don't want that scrutiny.
Right.
Elites don't want that scrutiny, and especially corrupt officials don't want that scrutiny. Exactly. But common sense, the common man here says, let's see what comes up. Let's see.
Right.
Maybe there's no big deal. Like, as long as we make our payments on our U.S. Treasury bonds.
As long as we're not defaulting. That's why USA needed to go, because we're just like throwing money around, like to every other country.
And not getting anything back from
it. And you know what? This is the thing about it, guys. Don't get me wrong, because I feel for all of the other nations in the world, and I want to be a collaborative nation. I want to be the kind of nation that has good ties, good relationship with everybody. But it's just like when your friend asks you for a $20 bill, to get him through the week. When you have it, great. Then you're happy to give your friend that $20 bill. But there are definitely times in your life where you're like, listen, dude, I don't have it right now. Like, we're underwater. It's important to understand that, this is like countries asking us for a $20 bill, and meanwhile we're staring at an $18,000 credit debt. Right, like credit card debt. Like, we can't afford that $20 bill right now. Right now, that $20 needs to go toward that credit card debt, and maybe it won't be enough, right? Because you got to understand, America is $35 trillion in debt. $35 trillion, right? We don't have a $20 bill to lend to our friend. I'm sorry.
And if we could just stop the deficit and just run a balanced budget,
and that would be enough, by the way. Like, we don't actually have to pay down the debt. If we run flat, then the rest of the economy catches up, right? Because as you go, economies naturally grow, first of all.
Well, we'll pay down the debt gradually.
Yeah.
So we don't need to do extra, like, surplus spending to pay down the debt.
Right.
Just balance the budget.
Not that it would be bad if we did.
Common sense, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to go back to a gold standard.
What are some of the questions or any statements from anybody?
Yeah, no, the last person that said something was Gino Versway. I think he was talking to one of the other. Okay. But yeah, for those of you out there, welcome aboard. If you have any questions, please comments, please like and subscribe. Please let us share this with 1 million of your closest friends. And,
we have a lot of good spicy takes, but really,
just got one in. All right, so it takes over 30 years to even count to 1 billion. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, funny story. I don't know if I've ever even told Christian. When I was young, I actually counted to 1 million. This is what autistic people do, right? Like, I didn't realize how crazy that was. I saw this. I had this little card that told me that if I counted to 1 million every second, it would take me 12 days. So I'm like, done, challenge accepted. And so, of course, like a year later, I finally finished or something like that. But yeah.
Well, yeah, because
you're totally right, because you stop for sleep.
Have you ever sang 1 million bottles of beer on the wall? you sing one verse, and the first verse goes great. 1 million bottles of beer on the wall, 1 million bottles of beer. You take one down and pass it around. 999,999 bottles of beer on the wall. 999,999 bottles of beer on the wall. 999.
Yeah. Good enough.
Right.
So yeah, right. No, you're right. People really don't understand numbers like that, right? They just don't. People when it gets up to that high, they're just like a gazillion, because they just don't know what that number means anymore, right? It just doesn't. It doesn't register to normal people, like common men like us. Like, it just doesn't make a difference, right? I don't think if I'm lucky, I'll see $1 million in my life. And it's probably just because inflation puts me up there, right? But like, I'm never going to see 1 billion. I'm never going to see 1 trillion. That stuff it's just out of the realm of like my imagination. And I don't even understand what you would do with that kind of money. Like, what can you do with $1 trillion that you can't do with like $600 billion? Like, what? You do it twice, I guess. I don't know. It's just outrageous. But I mean, that's the kind of money that our government just throws around willy-nilly, and nobody till this point has really challenged them on it, except for once briefly when Newt Gingrich made Clinton balance the budget. That was it.
Well, prior to the New Deal, it was regular. It was expected that we would have balanced budgets, and ever since the New Deal, FDR, we've been Keynesian. Pump primers,
Right.
And,
it's not there.
And the Cold War meant we were continually at war, so we needed to. And then the war on terror meaning we needed to deficit spend. Right. So we're not really at war right now. This is a good time. We don't have a war on terror. This is a good time for us to cut deficit spending.
Would be a great
opportunity. You know, there will be war hawks out there that say we need to ramp up against, other threats. I would say, right, we can plan for that, but we don't need to ramp up.
Right.
Because Hegseth can get us warrior ready,
Yeah, I hope so. I really do hope so. Yeah, you're right. It's a narcissistic nihilist says it's not their money. You're right. Absolutely. When it gets to the point where part of it. Now, one thing I will say in favor of the government doing this ridiculous budget spending when they just, they spend way past what they've got. One thing in their favor is because of inflation, money is actually more valuable now to use now than it is in the future. So like if you have the same dollar bill and you hold it over time, things get more expensive to buy, and therefore that dollar is worth less in comparison. So technically, if we could spend all of our money now and then pay it off slowly, we'd be doing better than if we spent it over time. So there is some complexity to it, and then there's also the level of abstraction that I don't know that anybody can actually call in America's debt. What are they going to do? Go to war with us?
Well, we could call in other nations' debt.
Yeah, but it's going to get to the point where private companies can just stop loaning to us, right? Like the companies that do feed us money, like BlackRock or Vanguard, which are already monster companies that are dangerous, very, very dangerous, and need to get put away probably. But if it gets to the point where we're reliant on them, then they have power over us, and then they can just get to the point where they say, look, we're going to cut it off because you're 36 trillion, 38 trillion, $50 trillion in debt, and that's too much. We don't want to.
I'm not as anti-BlackRock as him. I will take BlackRock money.
You like BlackRock money? Well, I mean, yeah.
$35 million BlackRock.
It works out.
I can be a mouthpiece for you. I'll stand up to Eddie's knee-jerk BlackRock hate.
Speaking of BlackRock, you know that Crooks was in a BlackRock commercial? You hear about that?
No.
Yeah, Crooks, the would-be assassin of Trump, was in a BlackRock commercial.
Oh wow.
Pretty crazy. Now, I'm a conspiracy theory guy, so that's already setting off all kinds of flags for me. Like I'm, the number one company in the world. I don't know. Let's see. What did he say? All right. I can understand. Money will never be better than right now. It's the Feds that need a drop. The reserve is, yeah. I agree that the reserve is not. How do you feel about the Fed?
So, the Fed, I'm a little more centrist on the Fed. I'm not as knee-jerk against it. Because I think when you have good leadership at the Fed, responsible government, I think it can help not have the big. When you look historically, I'm a history guy. Before the Fed, we would have periods of boom and depressions. Right? We're talking about the Great Depression, 29. There were lots of other depressions, booms and busts, runs on banks and things like this. And since the Fed, there haven't been any Great Depressions. There have been lots of recessions, which is slower growth, but there haven't been any depressions. And I think that's a note in their favor.
Yet.
Right, yeah.
So this is the pump priming.
Pump priming, but having good leadership. And I think beginning with Janet Yellen under the Obama administration is that I feel like the Fed has become much more political and, like Obama's famous for saying on monetary policy, he would raise taxes on the rich, even if it decreased tax revenues, because ideologically he just felt it was important.
Right, because
the ideology meant more than actually having more revenue come into the federal coffers. And I think Yellen and other political appointees that the left has to run the Fed, I think, have been injurious to its reputation as something for good and have made it.
Now, the Fed right now is kind of like this weird, like, conglomerate between, like, bank CEOs and stuff and government kind of like appointment. But do you think it should be under the supervision of the government, or should it be subsidiary, or should it be, like,
there is
third party?
There is some oversight. I can't speak to the best way to change it. Other than to be really careful about having good people that care more about growing the economy than ideology.
Yeah.
Right. Then the rich need to pay their fair share or whatever. Caring more about what will actually lead to stability and greater growth, sustainable growth, and not inflation. Right. And that's ideally the Fed does a monetary policy that will keep inflation, to 1% or less.
Well, I know that Trump wants more control over it. I don't know if that's something that he should be beholden to, or I don't know if that's something he should have. I think Trump already has a lot of power. Don't get me wrong, but what do you think about? So we don't have like depressions, but we do have like these crashes, like these bubble pops.
Yeah, they're called corrections.
Now, isn't that kind of the same thing?
No, market corrections are normal, right? So I used to work in financials, and people all the time, especially I worked for some big banks, and people would come up to me and say, "Hey, what do you expect this market to do?" And I was never wrong. Every time I gave advice, because we know what I would tell them, I say, "I expect it to fluctuate." Right? This is
it's
what
markets
do.
Precisely what the market's going to do.
And I'm never wrong. Now, I mean, I have faith in American markets because we're less corrupt generally. I won't say there's no corruption or no scams, but we try to police those that tries to be. We try to have, public companies publish books and try to have a system of honesty. And so I think for the most part that they're good investments. But nothing is permanent. Competition is real. Competition. Sears was a juggernaut, and they are no more. Things. Economies can change, and that's I think corrections are when people can become over exuberant or feel like one of the big things that happens in markets.
No, wait. Why the Fed then instead of why can't the U.S. Treasury do this? Didn't they originally have this role of managing the
with it backed in gold? They did.
So why are they not able to do it now that it's not? I mean, does the fact that it's not backed in gold does that change their ability?
No, that's fiat. Potential. I mean, the forming of the U.S. Treasury was actually very controversial, right? I think Jackson was the first one who finally put it in, but it kept being voted down. Like when one party would be in, and they'd be moving towards, and then another party voted out. So the U.S. Treasury is, I think it went to the Fed with the idea that it was sort of to be less political, less of a political job, that it were more technocrats. These are people who are PhDs in economics who really. All right. So my college economics professor, James Curl, Dr. Curl at BYU, brilliant man. He was not on the board of directors of the Fed, but he
says everybody from BYU is brilliant.
Sorry.
Okay.
Dr. Curl, he was the head of the economics department. I understood economics when I was in his presence. He just had this aura. Anybody around him could understand it. And when you left, you're all going, what the heck is going on?
What did he say?
But when you were around him, it all made sense. But and I knew and he could do the calculus behind it. And he could understand that and could speak to it. And he was generally a free market guy, with corruption, being the one thing that they needed to sort of regulate for. But when you're around really brilliant economic minds like that, you think, okay, if we can get really, really brilliant, really smart people in charge of this and have it not be a political football that bounces back from everyone, then it can be a good thing. I feel like Janet Yellen was not as good as Greenspan, was a huge drop down. And I felt like that...
right, as long as they can't be corrupted.
Yeah, and I felt like that they don't want... right? I mean, the left even said at the end in 2020, they were hoping the economy would go down so that Trump would get voted out.
Right.
Like, they deliberately, for nefarious ends, and we have to trust that the Fed are using their brilliance for it to work. If we feel like they're corrupted, if we feel like these technocrats are manipulating, putting their thumbs on the scale, not to lead us to their stated goals of growth with minimal inflation, but to make this such and such regime look bad or look good.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt that way during Biden's reign. I thought that they were raising interest rates and stuff just to try to like they really were trying to like stagnate the economy. And I don't know, that was kind of a weird just because the housing market was going up so fast, they were like worried about it or something. But then it turned into like they kept on trying to like save Biden every week. It was like a new modification to try to like make him look a little bit better, change the rules on what a recession was, just so that he wasn't in recession and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know. That felt like it was like they're trying to pull the wool over my eyes. But now, I do think that with Doge, the strength of the dollar will return. That's one of the benefits of not overspending.
Well, the dollar's strong now.
Yeah, now it is. It actually, well, it was fluctuating down when Trump announced his tariffs, but then when everybody like assented to his demands, then all of a sudden the dollar recovered and all the stocks started to go down and like shot back up. So that was pretty funny. So like guys, this is a good this is kind of proof that Trump's tariffs do actually work, right?
Markets will fluctuate, and you heard it here first.
The
common man is never wrong.
And Trump obviously after all that hype about Trump's tariffs, like, breaking the world, we knew the whole time that it was a negotiation tactic, and he's already used it to his avail 3 times. Now, I'm guessing China's going to have more pushback than Mexico or Canada will, but I mean, I think we're heading in the right direction. And I don't think that it was ever intended to become a blanket tariff to like everything on earth, right? That's what everybody was worried about. They dredged up all these economists to talk about how bad like a 20% tariffs across the board would be. And yet that was never the plan. It was never the plan, not even once. And I think we proved it this week.
Right? Well, I think as common men, we're kind of like, it's been so long since there's been tariffs, where we're like, I think maybe you've been exploiting this or gaming the system. Let's see what happens. Maybe we buy a few less goods from foreign countries, but with our dollar, if our dollar gets so strong, because we balance the budget, our dollar gets strong. Say the dollar gets 25% stronger, then goods are 25% more, right? That strong dollar can sort of outweigh that tariff.
Absolutely.
And now, right? So
becomes the same thing.
That's a theory that you heard first on Common Man.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Will you spread that out? Right? So let's see what question.
He says, tariffs are swapped for taxes, basically getting rid of the big shotting possibility, at least for a while. I think, yeah. Now, me personally, I have a slightly different philosophy than Christian does on tariffs. I'm not a big tariffs guy, but I have a principled objection. It's important to note that my objection is because I believe in free markets. I'm not making the statement that tariffs aren't effective or won't do what they're designed to do. I think they do accomplish that. I just have a problem with the principle of it, but that's just me. I am interested to hear, what I think we've got like 3 people in the thing right now, and only Nihilist is talking. But yeah, for the rest of you,
we just haven't really been impacted by tariffs in really very much in our lifetime, and other than other countries making it harder to sell. So unless you own a factory and you're trying to sell goods in a country that's tariffing our goods, but we don't tariff their goods coming back here to compete against.
Right.
He
actually just said the same thing. He said the
deficits. For a common man who doesn't own a factory that produces goods, I think for a lot of us common people, tariffs have been more of an esoteric idea that we're kind of like, I think we're willing to give Trump some rope to try that out, and the world knows that Trump has the political capital and the support behind him to put tariffs up there, even that will raise our prices. And we're willing to see if that achieves an end.
Right, and that's the big thing too, is that it's like he said that you spend the dollars in your country. Ultimately, that's the goal, right? So like, what tariffs will probably do is raise prices for the short term, but long term they may end up lowering it because of increased production inside the nation. It might lead to us regaining certain manufacturing jobs that were lost, right? So it might strengthen the economy of America. It might put us in a situation where now, after we get up to speed and we're manufacturing more, then the supply is higher, and then the prices may actually come down. Part of the reason that the supply is what it is because we basically outsource everything. And so tariffs could be a way of restructuring that, but it's not going to be something that like if Trump puts all these tariffs into action, it's not going to be something where our prices go down in like the next year or even 2 years. It's probably going to be like 10 years from now after the manufacturing jobs come back and after all the plant jobs come back and things like that and Trump's protectionism is in play, then you'll see the proceeds, but it won't be very quick. So
I think it's a game of cards. It's a game of poker and bluffing a little bit, but you have to know what you have. Like, there can be supply chain things that can really harm you in a tariff battle. One thing that Canada had against them is Canada does not have any oil pipelines that go from the western part of the country where all the oil is to the eastern part of the country that don't run through the United States.
right.
Right? They were going to build a line right from Alberta that went through that stayed all in Canada, but they nixed that. And they're using our pipelines that go through Wisconsin and Michigan or other things and then come back up to Toronto. And so they have, if we get in a trade war, they know like, holy crap, all of our oil has to go to the U.S. We're screwed. We don't have the infrastructure for that. And so we need to know our own infrastructure and limitations and see what. But those are the cards. And I think right now what we're asking Canada for is very reasonable. And that's why they acquiesced. But we want to see more than just words. We want to see boots on the ground. And so that's why he said, all right, you got 30 days. We're not going to do this. But if we don't see these 10,000 troops, if we don't see something actually happen, then, if you're just talking a good game and not doing anything, then this is going to happen. And I think that's the big thing that with today's negotiation.
Yeah. And Canada has since assented. Mexico has since.
Let's see them follow through.
Yeah, right. Let's see if they actually do it. Now, Panama is the next one that he pressured. Did you hear Panama finally said that they're not going to renew their Belt and Road Initiative contract?
With
China. So that could be big. I mean, I don't know exactly how much influence China has. It's kind of spotty. I know that they control like the port. They have these businesses that are on the ports. They don't like control the ports, but they definitely have influence there, and they do a lot of business. And they have the second biggest traffic through the Panama Canal. But I know that China wants to invest heavily in the canal so that they can, expand their little tendrily crab spider hands.
Well, they can get a priority through the canal.
Right. And I think it's only a matter of time before. I don't understand. I really hate that Jimmy Carter gave it away. I really do. I don't think that we have the right to just take it back, but I think that was a terrible move on his part. Like,
we could have when we overthrew Noriega, right? They did have a corrupt government that we came in. That war is very, because they don't really have a military. I mean, we could 10,000 troops and Panama is ours.
Yeah,
that's all it would take. 10,000 Marines.
Yeah. So Niles is talking about the treaty. So it's complicated. There are two treaties actually, and I don't know that they're actually in violation. It's close. It's one of those things where like it would go to court, it would be complicated, and a lot has happened since then. I mean, I spent a day like trying to dig into this thing to see if I could figure it out, see if I could. There's just so much to it. There's so much history. There's so much like part of the canal wasn't built by us; it was built by them. I did. I read the treaty. And I think there's a case to be made that they violated it, but it's not like black and white.
But really, common sense. What Trump wants is them for not to be unfairly dealing with us, right? Yeah. And that's the type of thing. It's like we've put up with this for a while, but if you cross the line, like where you're really, we're the United States, and we're not going to be treated like that endlessly.
Yeah, when we probably when Jimmy Carter gave it to him, what he should have said was like, forevermore, we don't have to pay.
Or something. Yeah, or something.
Because we should have gotten some concession for it. And like I said, there is a case to be made that they violate. One of the problems is that China's influence in that area is in itself, it could be considered an encroachment. We actually still have the ability, even in the treaty, to continue putting our military presence there. We can always go defend it anytime we want. Like that's our canal to defend, as it were.
We should have a permanent base there.
Yeah, we want. You know what? That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea at all. And I don't know if Panama would be very happy with that, but it is what it is. So, what else you got on the plate today?
Okay. So, any questions?
Yeah, any questions? Well, we was talking about the Panama Canal Treaty. There's two different ones. China owns businesses on both, which it was Hong Kong. Now, it wasn't a problem when we did it. To be fair, in Jimmy Carter's defense, which I don't like Jimmy Carter, but in his defense, when he gave it away, those businesses belonged to Hong Kong. Hong Kong belonged to Britain, and that wasn't a big deal. But yeah, now that it's China, it's not as cool. But I don't know that necessarily gives us a right to change our minds. I don't know. It's kind of
but it's pushback but yeah, I think any type of Central American political figure wants to show that he's macho, that he's a man, because he can stand up and gain the respect of the U.S. And Trump does not want to see the U.S. pushed around, and he'll do. I think he. As a disruptive president, Teddy Roosevelt and Truman and Trump are in that, willing to use gunboat diplomacy. Willing to be belligerent.
That was the other thing that I wanted to bring up. So I saw these headlines go out the other day because Trump was in an interview and the guy asked, "Are we going to use force, basically, to take Greenland, to take Canada, to take Panama?" And Trump's like, "I'm not going to answer that. Why would I ever answer that question? That's a stupid question. I'm never going to answer that." And then, of course, the headlines the next morning are all like, "Trump refuses to take force off the table." I'm like, what? This is the kind of garbage that he has to deal with. It's like insane. It's like what kind of? And I talked with somebody today all day about it. I'm like, no, that does not mean that he threatened Panama. But that's the rumor mill that goes around. It's a canard. It's like, oh my gosh, drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. I can't imagine being president.
I mean, what have you heard about? You heard about the potential second canal through Nicaragua?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, just because there's so much traffic, and shipping traffic's only going to get more and more, especially. But the problem is down there is just the mountains. They gain elevation so quickly. Ring of fire. It's not the Andes, but.
He said, "I heard him threaten Panama with my." Yeah, I bet. Everybody hears what they want to hear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that'd be an interesting. Are we going to do it? Are we going to construct it again, or is
well, Nicaragua's been working on it, and it's. I would think we would only do it if Nicaragua votes to become a territory of the United States.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind owning the Panama Canal or the Nicaraguan Canal.
If they want to become U.S., if their citizens should be able to vote, and if they'd like to become states or territories of the U.S., we can make a Central American state, say Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I mean, but I don't know. Canada doesn't make sense as a state to me. I mean, at minimum, it would need to be multiple states.
Yeah, right? it would be probably 6 or 7 states.
Yeah. Like each province or whatever. We
wouldn't give Prince Edward Island its own state. It would probably be like Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island would be one state.
Right.
They can call it whatever they want. And then you'd have Quebec would be one state, and then you'd have Ontario would be one state, and then you have Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and the Northern Territories, and Yukon be one state. Then you'd have Alberta and British Columbia.
Now, here's an interesting thing to consider, right? So over time, the pattern of human sociology, the pattern of human history is that empires get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So over time, America's got a pretty big empire. We're pretty large. We have a lot of influence. Britain had a large empire, but empires just seem to expand over time. It started out as literally to be tribes, then kingdoms, and then now we're at the point where North America may take over most of North America.
But it's democracy, right? So they would have to vote. Those countries would have to vote to join us. we're not going to militarily take them.
Yeah, agreed. But now, what would be interesting though is if North America expands like that, and then so it got me thinking about 1984, where there's like 3 giant nations.
Oceania,
right?
yeah.
But and I'm sitting there thinking we're already kind of doing this perpetual war thing in America. That's like one of our tricks. And so it's not gonna be too long before we have like basically a whole continent.
Well,
and then they've got.
It's a good thing we have X and we have YouTube that you can get unfiltered, not state sponsored media, right? Free speech is the hedge against that. But
thank God that there are channels like Common Mansplaining to lay it all on the line for you.
Right, we are not parodying the narrative.
Right,
no elites here.
That's for sure.
That's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got for you guys today too. Leave some comments in the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll catch you next time on Common Mansplaining. Thanks so much for your participation today, Nihilist. We look forward to seeing you next time.